Hello everyone, you are watching CGTN Digital. We are live streaming from the Great Hall of the People from downtown Beijing over a 5G network. I'm Zhou Jingnan, and standing next to me is my colleague John Goodrich. John, why don't you brief our audience on what's coming up next?
Well, it's a busy day in the legal world today, Jingnan. We're going to be hearing work reports from the Supreme People's Court and the Supreme People's Procuratorate, which I find very difficult to say.
We will define that word later.
And there's also a press conference from the Supreme People's Court and a Minister's Corridor, which will be opening up in about 10 minutes' time.
In about 10 minutes' time. We are actually waiting for the starting of the Minister's Corridor. And from the broadcast just now, I picked up some of the names of the ministers that are supposed to be here. They include the heads from the Supreme People's Court, Supreme People's Procuratorate, head from the National Bureau of Statistics, as well as the Education Minister. So it should be an interesting Minister's Corridor today.
Yeah, it's the fourth Minister's Corridor of the two sessions. We're on the 10th day now. And yeah, that's an interesting bunch. What are you expecting to hear in the work reports from the Supreme People's Court and the Supreme People's Procuratorate?
Yeah, maybe I think we can explain the word procuratorate for a little bit, because it's a hard word for the Westerners to understand, right?
It's a hard word for me to say as well.
Yeah, well, so basically the Supreme People's Procuratorate means the Prosecutor General's office in English, right? And it's the Supreme People's Procuratorate is the highest level national agency for both prosecution and investigation.
Okay.
All right, so I think
So it's a prosecutorial office that carries out investigations across the country, and there's a series of officers at local levels, regional levels, provincial levels beneath it.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. As to why it is called Procuratorate, I guess you have to ask a linguist.
Yeah, we need to look into that a bit more.
Right. And speaking of what might be covered in this morning's work reports, I think as we are not having the reports in our hands, anything we're going to say is going to be some kind of speculation. But I did do my homework last night by reading last year's work reports delivered by these two agencies. And I picked up something interesting. One thing is that both reports mentioned the fact that they are going to provide legal guarantee for the three tough battles against major risks, poverty, and environmental pollution. And I think that's interesting because in the year 2019, we are actually approaching the year 2020. And the three tough battles are entering a very critical stage as China is supposed to build itself into a moderately prosperous society in 2020. Yeah,
by next year then China has promised to eradicate absolute poverty. So at the moment that's a really important thing. And in terms of legal policy, that plays into all of these things, because the oversight of environmental policy and things like that is really important to achieving and tackling those battles.
Yes, indeed. Well, I just want to remind you, we are live streaming from the Great Hall of the People in downtown Beijing over a 5G cellular network. We are waiting for the opening of the Minister's Corridor this morning. And after that, well, actually, what's interesting about that is today it's kind of special because the Minister's Corridor is going to be separated into two parts. The first part is going to start in a bit, and the other part is going to start after the plenary session of the second session of the 13th National People's Congress. So please make sure to stay online for the full thing.
Yeah, we're having a switch around from the normal way of doing things, and you can watch both, and of course you can also send in questions to us, because we'll be back here. I will, actually, you may not be, later this afternoon to present a discussion about the foreign investment law, which is also a very big thing at these two sessions. Definitely,
definitely. The foreign investment law, from the Chinese perspective, it is designed to better protect the foreign businessmen's legal rights in investing in China, and also to attract more foreign investment. I don't know how it is viewed in the Western perspective.
Well, so far it's been relatively positively taken up. It's been seen as a step in the right direction. But of course it's still being deliberated here at the two sessions. Still changes could be made, and it will be voted on Friday. So I think after Friday we will see the final version of the foreign investment law, and people will make their judgments then. As with anything like this, then really the important thing is how it's implemented when and if the law becomes reality. So businesses and chambers of commerce, companies will be looking at to see how exactly that law is put into practice.
Well, as we say, devils are in the details, right? All right, just want to remind you, we are live streaming from the Great Hall of the People in downtown Beijing over a 5G cellular network. We're waiting for the opening of the Minister's Corridor. Actually, the first part of the Minister's Corridor, right? And speaking of, let's go back to the work reports by the Supreme People's Procuratorate and the Supreme People's Court. From the work report I read about last year's work report, from the Supreme People's Court, it mentions something very interesting. It pledges to better build the so-called smart court. Apparently, we have smart everything, right? Smart city, smartphone, and I think the essence of those things are pretty much the same. That is the better usage of the internet.
Yeah, I mean, and also, as you mentioned, we're broadcasting via 5G, and 5G is going to make a big difference to all these smart things, smart cars, and probably smart courts as well.
Yeah.
It's just a way of making the justice system work faster, presumably.
And also making the information more public online as well. It also says that there will be more live streaming of the court trials. So that will be interesting to watch, right? It also says that it will better integrate artificial intelligence and technology information with the court work. I don't know how that will go, but it will certainly be an interesting prospect to look forward to.
Yeah, and presumably in this work report today, we're going to hear more updates about where that kind of thing is going, because typically these work reports have a lot of detail in them. They're quite lengthy, so they'll give us an update as to where that's going, as well as a general overview of legal process in China. One thing I picked up that was spoken about last year was a new intellectual property court at the high level. There's been intellectual property courts at lower levels previously, but a new high-level court opened up, I think in January, started hearing cases, and that also plays into what we were talking about earlier with the foreign investment law, because intellectual property and the protection of it is
related.
Yeah, it's a really important issue for foreign businesses, which have expressed concern before, but steps like this, putting in place this kind of court, is very much a reassurance, I think.
Right. Okay, so it is broadcast just now that the Minister's Corridor is going to start at 8 o'clock sharp. That's about 5 minutes from now. All right, you are watching CGTN Digital. We are live streaming from the Great Hall of the People in downtown Beijing over a 5G cellular network. I'm Zhou Jingnan, and standing next to me is my colleague, John Goodrich.
Jingnan, perhaps I can ask you, so far we've been here for 10 days. We've seen quite a lot of things at the two sessions. What stood out for you so far?
Well, actually, that's related to the Minister's Corridor, because last time on the 5th, we were also doing a live streaming here at the exact location. And on that morning, there were also several ministers coming to speak to the reporters. And I was pretty much very impressed by the Commerce Minister's answering the reporter's question. He's basically went over the process on the China-U.S. negotiation. So basically, he said this negotiation was very tough because of so many differences between China and the U.S. But he also said that both sides have agreed to continue talking, and during that extended period of time, no extra tariff will be imposed on either side. So I would take that as a very positive signal, although no outcomes have been announced yet.
No, I suppose we're going to have to wait for the next few weeks, maybe a month or so, and see how it plays out after the two sessions wraps up for anything definitive. But yeah, that was a very interesting one for sure. And also we had the foreign ministers briefing last Friday. Right,
you were covering that actually just several days ago from the office. I saw you looking very attentively at the screen and listening to it.
It's you intense 2 hours.
Yes, you also wrote a wrap-up piece after that, right? So what impressed you the most?
Well, I think every two sessions, then the foreign minister's briefing is one of the highlights. Wang Yi covers such a broad spectrum of issues. This year, the U.S.-China relations are such a focus. They're a backdrop to everything that happens around the world. I mean, not just here. They're so important for everybody. So I think his words on that were very striking. He would talk about substantial progress being made in the talks, and also he said that relations with the U.S. were still in a good place despite the tensions that have taken place over the last year or so. He was pretty positive about how the US and China are getting on.
Yeah, about the China-US relations, I remember he said something like, some people suggested to dissect the relationship between China and US, and he said it is definitely not the option here because we are in such a globalized and a connected world nowadays.
Yeah, he used the word, I think, decouple.
Oh, right, decouple.
Yeah. He said decoupling would be a terrible mistake, and also just wasn't possible. He made the point that China works with all 50 of the US states already. It's such an integrated economic relationship. Anyone who talks about separating that relationship just wasn't looking at reality. It's not how in this world that we live and work in today, it's not how it works, and it just can't be done. As
some might say, the U.S. and China relation is like a married couple that divorce is not an option for them.
Yes.
All right. And I think like every presser given by the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the message he sent out is unified every time. That is, whether China is strong or weak, although it is getting stronger and stronger, becoming the second economy in the world, it will not seek hegemony or stick to the logic of might is right. So when it comes to the world affairs, or be it the Korean Peninsula issue or the situation in Venezuela or the Belt and Road Initiative, that's the spirit China is sticking to, to seek win-win cooperation, and that is also the the concept of the major state relationship that China is promoting right now.
Yeah, at the press conference on Friday, something that's always very notable is that whatever dispute is brought up, whatever question is asked, the answer is, well, first of all, we need to talk. Talking is the most important thing, communicating, having dialogue, and finding out a solution without reverting to any kind of conflict. Right,
dialogue always exceeds conflicts. Right. All right, you are watching CGTN Digital. We are live streaming from the Great Hall of the People in downtown Beijing over a 5G network. I'm Jingnan, and this is my colleague, John. Right now, we are actually waiting anxiously for the opening of the Minister's Corridor. And this will be the 4th Minister's Corridor in about 10 days. And we know that every time the Minister's Corridor, there will be about 5 or 6 ministers. So in total, there have already been almost 20 ministers showing up here, speaking to the reporters about issues that concern them the most.
Yeah, it's kind of like a press conference, but in a different format. And it's been very well received this year. Maybe it's difficult to say, but maybe even more so than last year. There's been more people here, there's been more questions answered, there's been more attention. I mean, you can see behind you right now, there's maybe 150 people crowded there, waiting for the ministers to come. Yeah. It's become a major event of the 2 sessions over the last couple of years. And we've had, as you said before, when you were talking about the Commerce Minister being here last week, we had some real news lines as well.
Yes, and this year, I don't know if this is the first time for the deputies corridor to be held.
I think last year they had one as well. Yeah.
Okay, but it's pretty new, right?
Yeah,
in recent years. Yes. So I think that also shows the evaluation of the roles of the deputies in this very important political season, because that's the basic meaning of it. The country is ruled by the people, and the deputies are elected by the people. That's why the deputies definitely have an important say in this.
I think it's fair to say from an outside point of view, such as my own, sometimes the Chinese political system is a little difficult to understand. Yeah. It's not always the most transparent. So events like this, particularly with the deputies coming to speak, gives them some insight into their job, what they do, what their role is here, and what their role is through the year as well, not just during these couple of weeks they're in Beijing.
Yes.
And I think, talking of deputies and the roles they played, then you made a video quite recently about a local deputy.
Yes. Actually, I filmed a vlog with a post-90s deputy yesterday, and it is a very new experience for me, because in our experience, or from our experience, all the deputies are at least in their 40s or 50s, right, or 60s even. So it's quite unorthodox to see someone that young to be elected as the national deputy to the National People's Congress, right? So through this interaction with him through one day, I actually felt like I knew him better. Okay, so apparently the minister's corridor is going to start. So John and I will sign off here. Please do stay tuned for what's coming up next.
Enjoy.
国家林业和草原局张建龙局长来到台前，谢谢张局长。好，我们今天的部长通道现在开始。下面有请第一位部长。
The minister's corridor. Let's give the floor to the first minister.
国家林业和草原局张建龙局长来到台前，谢谢张局长。
Minister Zhang Jianlong from the State Forestry
下面有
Bureau.
请大家提问。好，
Now the floor is open.
好的，谢谢主持人。我是贵州广播电视台
Thank you.
动静新闻的记者张
I
局
come
长，
from
早上好。
Guizhou
这些年我们
TV.
贵州
Good
在国
morning,
土绿化
Minister
方面
Zhang.
是受益
In
很大。
these
那么
years,
今天
as
是
to
植树
the
节，
greening,
请允许我向
we
中国
have
广大
made
的
great
林业工作
headways.
者们致以我们的
And
敬意。
today,
那我的问题
we
是，国土绿
are
化行动实施以来，很
welcoming
多地
a
方都在开展
festival
植树行
for
动，但我们也发现，在
arbor,
朋友圈里面呢，也
and
有很多
in
人对
many
这些
places
年
there are
的造林
plantation
成
of
效有疑
trees
问，
across
说是
China,
植树不
but
见树，
in
造林
our
难成林。那您
social
对
media,
这一
some
说
people
法
are
有什么
questioning
看
about
法
the
呢？
results of
谢谢。
greening process. They say that there is a very difficulty to cover the whole area with forest with just a small efforts by individuals. What's your take on that? Thank you for your question. Today is the Arbor Day. It's quite an honor to take your questions. And I would like to take this opportunity to give our thanks to all of these media friends and people from different circles of lives for your participation in and attention to the greening process. Just now, you mentioned that when we are planting trees, it's very difficult to have an entire forest. That is truly a problem in some localities. And it's due to different reasons. To put it simply, it means we are planting trees in places not suitable. And we shall take it seriously, but we didn't. When we should be planting scrubs, we are not, and instead we are planting the trees that come from different species. And also our management lags behind. 70% of our efforts shall go to management after plantation, so we cannot cover the land with an entire forest. That's why our bureau has been paying special attention to that problem, and we are dedicated to solving it. And I can say for sure that over the past years, in particular, in recent several years, the greening of our land has indeed made significant progress. We have abundant data to prove it. According to the latest data, by the end of this month, we are going to publicize such sets of data, but it's not my place to disclose it right now. Of course, data may not be enough to prove anything. We can see vividly with our own eyes when we are paying visits to our families or to tourist spots or even on a daily basis. We can feel by ourselves about the most transformative changes of all. That is the greening and the afforestation with larger areas over the years, and this has been echoed by the entire society, not only from China but also the international community. We have about 1.18 billion mu area of afforestation in China. That is number one in the world. Some people say that was about 50% of the total afforestation in the world. Some others say it shall be 1/3 of the total. But anyway, our afforestation area is number 1 in the world. Under the encouragement of certain agencies, last year, the International Afforestation Conference was held in China. In 2017, the Desertification Organization of the United Nations also convened its Congress in China, during which occasion China's efforts in solving desertification has been acknowledged. According to the data from NASA, they say that 1/4 of such contribution comes from China, and particularly afforestation coming from China was about 42% of the total. So in general, we had made significant achievements in afforestation, but still, we are in lack of forests and trees. We are still facing a fragile ecological environment, which requires our common efforts to further improve our greening results. With that joint effort, we can improve the quality and efficiency of our greening project. Thank you. More questions? Thank you. Morning, Minister Zhang. I come from Guangming Daily, Zhao Minghao. I have 2 questions. Ever since last year, there have been the illegal building of villas that is concerned about the destruction of the preserve areas. So the establishment of this new State Forestry and Grassland Bureau was a determination of the state government to solve such desertification and also illegal construction issues like the Qilin, Beishu areas. And what is the progress made by such pilot project at national level? Thank you for your questions. We are building this new State Bureau in this new round of government agency reform. That is an effort to solve the issue from an institutional level with multiple pillars of management coming from different sectors and agencies, and to avoid the lack of responsibility from any party. So with this new State Bureau, we will coordinate the management from different sectors and departments, and we have clarified the division of responsibilities. So we will step up the efforts of preservation. You said that we have a pilot program at national level starting from 2015. The National Reform Deepening Commission approved several animal species like northeastern tiger and the tropical forest in Hainan province and others, added by the original 5 categories. In total, we covered about 10 different categories, covering an area of about 200,000 square kilometers in China. And such a pilot project was designed to solve the issues of the overlapping of boundaries in different preserve areas. Theoretically speaking, that was a good design, and it is an integral part of our effort to build and improve our ecological civilization. It is also a practice of the ecological civilization concept proposed by General Secretary Xi Jinping. After years of efforts, we have made achievements in at least several fronts. The first one is we completed the top-level design. The national government introduced the general plan for building such a national convention system and a guideline about natural resource protection under the national convention system. We also had very detailed standards and arrangements for how to protect and observe of those national parks. And the second achievement is we have put in place certain agencies and departments. For example, we have put the name of national parks into the agency in some provinces like Qinghai, Gansu, and Shanxi provinces, and Sichuan province. Hainan province yet to follow. Will see the establishment of the provincial level agencies, and branches are yet to be in place under. So we already have the initial arrangement of those departments and agencies. Third, we enhanced the protection and restoration of those national parks and other preserved areas. By undertaking, managing, and enforcing laws thereafter, we fulfill our commitments of supervision within the boundaries of the national parks. For any illegal and unreasonable projects, we ask them to close down and be halted. For example, Chilean Mountain is a good example. About 100 illegal mines are stopped and they are about to exit this area. The fourth achievement is enhanced management and supervision. In the total number of 10 national parks, we have hired 50,000 managers to enhance the management efforts. At the same time, in each national park, it must equip itself with its unique management plan, institutional design, and laws and regulations. In certain national parks, they have very well developed laws and regulations. So we can say we have already reinforced our management. Finally, we have gradually improved the livelihood in the surroundings of those national parks. That is very important. If you are planning to build national parks, you must deliver beautiful ecology and better welfare of the people. So with the ecological compensation and the compensation paid to certain projects affected, we are surely going to benefit the local people in the fields of employment and subsidies. For example, the Sanjiangyuan National Park is a very good case about such compensation. We have hired about 18,000 local managers to guard the national park. Their monthly salary is about 1,800 RMB yuan, helping about tens of thousands of people out of poverty. So that is a good effort toward poverty alleviation. But we are just taking the first step. In the future, under the leadership of the central government, particularly within the framework of the guideline of protecting national park, we will try to further improve our institutional design and mechanism and mobilize the initiative of different localities so that in the natural preserves, people's lives will not be affected by such new projects.
All those are the studying topics for us. Thank you, Minister. Let's invite the next Minister. Mr. Sun Changyu, Director General of the National Bureau of Intellectual Property Rights. Yesterday, he has joined us with a presser, but he may have more questions to ask, so I had him here. Good morning, Mr. Shen. For the protection of the IP, we have a lot of expectations in the society. That is also a universal topic in the international community. However, people have some doubts. In this year's government's work report, it is mentioned that we should do all we can to protect the IP. So what are the pragmatic measures taken by SIPO to live up to the people's expectations? Thank you for your question. And by taking this chance, I'd like to thank you, dear friends from the press, and also the other people from the society for your long-term support and interest in this topic. As to the protection of IP, General Secretary Xi Jinping has made several times important guidelines. This time, in the government's performance report, we have also heard the new instructions. For SIPO, will continue to work under the leadership of the State Council, the CPC Central Committee, and the General Secretary Xi Jinping, and we're about to follow the guideline and do the work as follows. First, the top design. We're about to elaborate the plan for the building up of a complete system of the IP protection. We want to have a rapid and integrated protection of intellectual property. That is our working system. Secondly, we should start our protection since the very beginning. For example, the evaluation and auditing should be targeted and effective. In recent years, for the trading mark auditing cycle, it should be narrowed down from 6 months to less than 5 months. And for another category, last year we have narrowed down the window by 10%. This year will be reduced by another 15%. And third, we should improve the legal system. We're about to work along with the MPC to amend the law on the protection of the IP. And for those people who have violated the IP, they should pay a higher cost. And in the amendment to the patent law, the maximum punishment could be 5 times the original price. At the same time, we have also started the work on the amendment of the law on trademark. Fourth, we are doing the trials in establishing an assistance center for the protection of IP overseas, so that the Chinese people, when working abroad and when Chinese products are used overseas, they can also get the sufficient protection. And fifth, we should use the Internet Plus and the other tracing mechanisms to have the real-time monitoring of the IP protection. Besides, we're about to establish another group of centers for IP protection for the rapid recognition and also rapid protection of the IP, so that we can provide a more more convenient, more effective, and lower cost of IP protection service to the public. Next question, please. Thank you.
尊敬的主持人，我是中国青年联合会消费日报记者，请问知识产权局审计长。多年以来，我国专利商标申请量一直居世界的前列，但也存在量多、利用率不高的问题。海量的知识产权并没能都转变成实实在在的真金白银。今后国家将有哪些措施，让知识产权成为助推经济发展的强大动力？
To make sure that the IP could help to boost the economy of China. Thank you for your question. Intellectual property is closely connected with the economic growth. For SIPO, we have considered our past experience and continued with our practices and explorations to boost the Chinese economy. First of all, we have to continue our protection and support to patent and also transfer them to the translated them into the real applications. For example, the manufacturing, new generation of mobile transportation and telecommunication, and the medical care. Second, for the trademarks, we should guide the enterprises to put more focus on the cultivation of their own brands and trademarks, so that the Made in China could be turned into created by China. And the brand building is one of the key topics. And third, we should pay more attention to the geographic indicator of the products, so that we can have more economic growth based on the local features. China is a vast country with abundant resources and also enriched culture. We have a lot of products with a geographic indicator, and there is a value of 1 trillion yuan behind that. This is an important way to help people to get out of poverty. Fourth, we have to carry out international cooperation for IP protection. Chinese and foreign enterprises should maintain the normal collaboration and communication, so altogether we can make our economic grow. Last year, the IP utilization fee of imported goods is 230 billion yuan. For the exported has registered a year-on-year growth of 15%. That is a fast growth momentum, and it's also very strong growth. Thank you.
下面我们有请下一位部长。
Thank you, Minister. Let's invite the next minister, please.
国务院国资委肖亚庆主任来到台前，感谢肖主任。
Mr. Xiao Yaqing from the National Asset Commission of
下
the
面有
State
请记
Council.
者提问。
Now the floor is open for your questions.
好，谢谢主持人，我是来自经济日报的
Thank you.
多媒体记者。我的问题
I'm
是
from
关于
Economic
专业
Daily.
化整合的。今年的政府
My
工作
question
报
is
告中
about
提出要
the
深化电
professional
力、油气、
integration.
铁路领域的改革。
It is
那
said
您在记者
that
会上
for
也提
the
出要
oil
以管
and
道公
gas
司成立
and
为基
railway
金，推
and
进油气领域
transformation
的改革。
and
那么我的
transportation
问题是，请问
sector
主
we
任，
should
下
carry
一
out the
步将如
reform.
何推
You
进
have mentioned
专业
that
化
during the
整
press
合？
conference.
另外，中央企
So
业
for
的
the next
专业
step
化
to
整
come,
合
how
在
could
这
we
些
make a
重点领域
professional
将如何推进和
integration?
开展？谢
And
谢。
in these key areas, what measures could we take? Thank you for your question. For the central enterprises, in the key sectors, in general, we made substantial progress. However, today the distribution of resources is separated and divided, and in the same sector, there's too much competition. So today, when we're carrying out professional integration, that is to respond to the demand of the market, so that we can realize the quality development and make sure that the enterprises can share and coordinate their resources, and even have the cross-distribution of the resources. For example, recently, for the signal towers of the telecommunication system, we have carried out a sharing of the resources. So finally, the result is satisfying with better efficiency. And there is also a greater efficiency in the distribution of resources, and it's more based on the market. We hope that each enterprise could follow that example and have a faster growth. By this professional integration, more people could be benefited. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Zhou. For the local SOE reform, we are preparing for new actions. However, people are not in the same stage of development. Some are lagging behind, some others are leading. So how could we ensure that all the progress can be synchronized? I'm from the Orient TV. For the local SOEs reform, we are on the track. For the provinces, municipalities, autonomous regions, we are all following the guidance of the central government to promote the local SOE reforms. Especially for the local government and commission of the party, we are making efforts. For example, for Shanghai and Shenzhen, we are making the comprehensive reforms. And for the northeast area of the country, a lot of highlights. During this process, people have based on the realities of the SOEs in the locale and try to carry out their own practices and experiments in the SOE reform. In some cases, there may be the burden from the past. For the others, they have the awareness problems. That means they haven't activated enough the driving force for the SOE reform. So in that scenario, we should make greater efforts. For the local SOE reform, they are one important part of the total SOE reform. For the next step to come, we should continue to push forward the SOE reform. When we put the seed in the soil, we have to wait for several seasons to have the harvest. We have to be patient, and we hope that the society could be patient too, to witness and to see the future results and achievements. Thank you. Next, the minister, please.
国家税务总局王军局长来到台前，他也是2014年我们规范化部长通道以来，
Mr. Wang Jun,
每
the
次都接
Minister
受
of
采访
the
的部长。
National
谢谢王局
Taxation
长。
Bureau.
好，下面
He's
请大家
also
提
a
问。
very popular minister among all the journalists for all the two-session interviews. Thank you. Minister, I'm from CCTV. The reduction of tax and fees is one of the highlights of the government's report. It's related to people's benefits. What are the future measures to carry out that policy of taxation and fees reduction? Thank you for your question. The State Council and CPC Central Committee have attached great importance to the application of a higher degree of taxation and fees reduction. Last year, starting by November, General Secretary Xi Jinping, in many occasions, has mentioned the policy of a larger scale of reduction of fees and taxations. He has made the guidelines and instructions for us to follow. And Premier Li Keqiang, in its government report made on the 15th of March this year, has mentioned a cut of 2 trillion RMB of fees and taxes. That is a basket of policies for the taxation and fees cut. That is a real measure to bring tangible benefits to the people by the reduction of fees and taxations. There are 2 outstanding features. One, it is very targeted.
减税降费的总额近2万亿元，比去年大规模减税降费又增加了50%以上。单就减税而言，它的规模相当于今年预算安排的税务部门。
We want to reduce the burden on SME and the working class.
这么大的减税降费的规模，无论是在中国还是在国外，无论是近些年来，还是几十年来，都是空前的。它充分彰显了我们党和政府攻坚克难、精力图治、逐梦圆梦的决心、信心、智慧和力量。税务部门啊，这么大的必须把减税降费实打实、硬碰硬的落到地上。我们的努力目标是做到44硬，也就是政策制定要实，简明操作要实，宣传辅导要实，优化服务要实。哪4硬呢？就是信息系统要硬，数据账本要硬，检查问责要硬，改进完善要硬。3月5日，总理公布减税降费一揽子方案的当天，税务总局就向全国发出通知，要求大家迅速行动起来，做好准备工作。3月8日，我们又决定再取消15项涉及减税降费措施落地的税务证明。目前全国各级税务部门和广大税务人员正在夜以继日的、紧锣密鼓的、周到细致的进行着各项准备工作。在减税降费落实的过程中，我们欢迎并将主动的配合方方面面，包括我们媒体的朋友们，进行实打实、硬碰硬的监督。我们不回避问题，不掩饰短板，在落实中改进，在改进中更好落实。
In implementation, we will keep improve our results, and I
好的监督一定会使这些政策取得好的结果。这就是提振人们信心、筑牢长远的根基、促进高质发展。
term and pursue high-quality development. We will contribute to the world economy, and to that end, our personnel from the Taxation Bureau will make every due effort. Thank you. Morning, Mr. Wang. I come from China Securities Daily. Last year, in the corridor, you said we are having the right time and the right people and the right will for the integration. And what is the result? And what about the progress about individual income tax reform? Thank you for your questions. For the national taxation and local taxation reform, the difficulties are more than what we expected. But the results are also far exceeding our expectation. I said about the right time, the right people for such reform of national taxation and local taxation. We made it happen. And we are working more towards such integration. In the reform process of our agencies, we have eliminated about 34,000 agencies in the taxation sector at the primary level. But for municipal, provincial, county, township levels of taxations, or the tax collectors, we are abiding by the timetable for the reform and screening. Such great results can also be reflected that in the agency reform process, 22,255 cadres have been demoted to the deputy level, but they didn't regret it. They are still willing to work with the grassroots level taxation personnel. Such goodwill not only guarantee that the steady progress can be made in the agency, but also they can endure any mountain pressure and challenges coming from the first stage and second stage of individual income tax, SME taxation reduction, and other pressure sources. That is a demonstration about the good working style of our taxation personnel. For your second question, the individual income tax reform, I can show you two sets of data. Firstly, to show you the large scale of taxation reduction. On October the 1st, 2018, and since then until January 2019, within 4 months' time, we reduced 200 billion RMB yuan of taxation. Before the taxation reform, last year the revenue from January to September, we had a yearly increase of 20% of taxation revenue. But after the 4 months of taxation reform, the yearly reduction of taxation was about 14.2%. Since January 2019, the second stage of individual income tax reform was kicked off, and the monthly reduction of taxation on that same month was about 23.5%. The second group of data was about the large coverage of individual income tax reform. For the first two rounds of individual income tax reform, we targeted at all working class people. They must benefit from such taxation reduction at 2 different degrees. So we have 100% coverage. And among that group of people, 80 million enjoyed 100% definitely of taxation reduction. That is to say, 80 million people do not have to pay individual income tax any longer. Another 65 million taxpayers had a taxation reduction of about 70% compared to the previous situation. So, my dear friends, this year, we already are underway of taxation collection at national taxation and local government levels. So, since this is the first beginning year of such new reform, we must bring about new outlook. We will continue to adhere to socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era proposed by General Secretary Xi Jinping while implementing the instructions of the central government and CPC Central Committee. We will try to locate our gaps and fulfill that gaps in order to further develop a better situation with the right timing, the right place, and the right people in this undertaking. We hope to get more cohesive and prosperous. Then we can further execute the taxation and charges reduction policies and better manage our revenues and better serve the economic and social development. We want to reassure our CPC Central Committee and the central government, as well as our common people. Thank you, Mr. Wang. Now the next minister, please. Vice Minister Fu Zhenghua from the Ministry of Justice. Thank you. From the Legal Affairs Daily. In 2014, we had the first examination of the legal sector. Could you give us some data about the admission rate after passing the examination? If they want to join the workforce of judges or attorneys, are there any more requirements for the threshold? And people are wondering about the time for this year's examination. Could you give us more information? Thank you. As we all know, establishing such a judicial examination at national level is one practice to execute the spirit of General Secretary Xi Jinping and implement the overall arrangements of the CPC Central Committee and the effort of building such a rule of law society. 2014 was the first year for the National Judicial Examination. For Public Securities Bureau, we have received their support of such examination together with the other agencies, like the Ministry of Education. So with joint effort, we have successfully completed such a national examination. To give you more information about that examination, we have successfully transitioned from the old system to the new system. For example, for the application process, we introduced new policies for newcomers, and the original policies will remain for the previous exam candidates. For those remote places, we have some relief measures.
For the candidates, they can have a loosened requirement for the major, and also the threshold for qualification has been lowered down too. For the above-mentioned regions, these measures could help to build up the team in a more effective and faster manner. Apart from that, we will continue to allow the students on fourth year of university education to enter into that exam. And second, we are using the new features of the new period of development to examine the students and the candidates' quality and skills. For example, the spirit of the Constitution is included in that range of examination. During the examination, when designing the examination paper, there is greater proportion of case analysis. So it's more oriented to the practices of the legal sector. In 2018, we have changed a little bit the form of the examination. In the past, it's once for all for the examination, and now it's separated into two parts. The first part is the objective judgment, and the second is the subjective judgment and answering. Only after passing the first part could the students enter into the second part. And for the objective part, the score can be valid for 2 years. In 2018, during the examination across the country, there are in total 604 students applied for the examination, and about 400,000 people have entered into the examination. 190,000 people have passed the examination. Among that 192,000 people, 180,000 have joined the second part of the examination. And among them, 120,000 people have passed the second half. We have made several breakthroughs. For the written examination, we performed that with the computer. The second breakthrough we have realized the online coverage of the examinations, even including the Hong Kong and Macau areas. During the examination, we have fulfilled our responsibilities in the examination processes with no obstacle, and is quite a success. Currently, we are verifying for the last time the score and candidacy of the students, and by the end of this month, for those qualified students, we're about to give them the certificate. And currently, we are also preparing for this year's legal examination, and in general, there are no big changes. 3 months before the opening of the examination, we will do an information disclosure to receive the supervision and inspection from the society. And we sincerely hope that more students who have an ambition for the legal career in China, they could join us with the 2019 legal examination. Next question, please. I'm from People's Daily. During the conference of the committee of the rule by law of the country, it is mentioned that we have to strengthen the food safety law execution, law enforcement. For the food and drug safety, the State Council and CPC Central Committee have attached a great importance on that. On several occasions, General Secretary Xi Jinping has made the instructions for us, and he said that we should make all our efforts to make sure that the food and drug is safe for people. And in another conference, General Secretary Xi Jinping has mentioned that we should use the legislation to secure the health and life of the people. We should do our work well with the protection of the safety of food and drug. And now the direction is very clear. This topic is related to the life of 1.4 billion people, and it's a basic issue of general interest, and is also a topic related to the public security. The Office of the National Commission of the Rule by Law and our department will continue to do our best to protect the safety of food and drug in the country. In general, in China, the situation of safety for drug and food is improving steadily. However, there are still some challenges. Facing those challenges and difficulties, we are about to take the following measures. First, to improve the legislation system. A good law is the basis for good governance. Facing the sector of food and drug, in the past, the cost for making a criminal action is very low. But we have to change that since now. And for the food and drug area, some laws are not strict enough, and the law enforcement is not effective and yet to be improved. We have to take relevant measures so that the law can protect the people and can ensure the food and drug security. Second, for the administrative and law enforcement measures, we have to do a better job. First of all, for the food and drug, reports coming from the people, we have to be serious with the whistleblowing. At the same time, for the outstanding problems, we have to target our force on that. And third, for the food and drug safety, we have to educate people with the laws. First, for the food and drug safety, the producers, the enterprises, the employees, we have to let them know better about the current legal system so that their awareness of abiding by law could be improved. And then we can use the representative cases to educate the people, to show them with those examples. And thirdly, We should strengthen the supervision and also the inspection. The Office of the Rule of Law, starting by this year, will strengthen their work in protecting the food and drug safety. They will carry out more actions of legal supervision and inspections. The relevant results coming from those inspection visits will also be disclosed for the recommendation and supervision of the people. And we will use the most strict measures to make sure that our food and drug situation could be satisfying and secured, so people can have healthy access to food and drug. Thank you for Minister Fu. Since the Congress is just a few minutes away, we're about to stop our minister's corridor. After the Congress, around 11 o'clock, we're about to restart our minister's corridor. Now let's get inside the meeting hall.